Who are you?
I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have changed several times since then.
What do you mean by that? Explain yourself.
I can't explain myself, because I'm not myself, you see.
I don't see.
I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly, for I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing.
It isn't.
Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet, but when you have to turn into a chrysalis, you will some day, you know, and then, after that, into a butterfly. I should think you'll feel it a little queer, won't you?
Not a bit.
Well, perhaps your feelings may be different. All I know is it would feel very queer to me.
You? Who are you?
I think you ought to tell me who you are first.
Why? Come back. I've something important to say. Keep your temper.
Is that all?
No. So, you think you're changed, do you?
I'm afraid I am, sir. I can't remember things as I used, and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes together.
Can't remember what things?
Well, I've tried to say, how doth the little busy bee, but it all came different.
Repeat. You are old Father William.
You are old, Father William,
the young man said,
and your hair has become very white, and yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right?
In my youth, Father William replied to his son, I feared it might injure the brain, but now that I'm perfectly sure I have none, why, I do it again and again.
You are old,
said the youth,
as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you turned a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason for that?
In my youth, said the sage as he shook his grey lock, I kept all my limbs very supple by the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box. Allow me to sell you a couple.
You are old,
said the youth,
and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. Yet you finished the goose with the bones and the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?
In my youth, said his father, I took to the law, and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life.
You are old,
said the youth.
One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever, yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?
I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough, said his father. Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to that stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs.
That is not said right.
Not quite right, I'm afraid. Some of the words have got altered.
It is wrong from beginning to end. What size do you want to be?
Oh, I'm not particular as to size. only one doesn't like changing so often, you know.
I don't know. Are you content now?
Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir, if you wouldn't mind. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be.
It is a very good height indeed.
But I'm not used to it.
You'll get used to it in time. One side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow shorter.
One side of what? The other side of what?
Of the mushroom.
And now, which is which? Oh, oh, my head has struck my feet. Oh, come, my head's free at last. Oh, oh, what can all that green stuff be? And where have my shoulders got to? And oh, my poor hands! How is it I can't see you?
Serpent.
I'm not a serpent. Let me alone.
Serpent, I say again. I've tried every way and nothing seems to suit them.
I haven't the least idea what you're talking about.
I've tried the roots of trees, and I've tried banks, and I've tried hedges, but those serpents, there's no pleasing them, as if it wasn't trouble enough hatching the eggs, but I must be on the lookout for serpents night and day. Why, I haven't had a wink of sleep in 3 weeks.
I'm very sorry you've been annoyed.
And just as I'd taken the highest tree in the wood, and just as I was thinking I should be free of them at last, they must needs come wriggling down from the sky. Oh, serpent!
But I'm not a serpent, I tell you. I'm a...
Well, what are you? I see you trying to invent something.
I'm a little girl.
A likely story indeed. I've seen a good many little girls in my time, but never one with such a neck as that. No, no, you're a serpent, and there's no use denying it. I suppose you'll be telling me next you've never tasted an egg.
I have tasted eggs, certainly, but little girls eat eggs quite as much as serpents do, you know.
I don't believe it, but if they do, then why, they're a kind of serpent, that's all I can say. You're looking for eggs, I know that well enough, and what does it matter to me whether you're a little girl or a serpent?
It matters a good deal to me, but I'm not looking for eggs, as it happened, and if I was, I shouldn't want yours. I don't like them raw.
Well, be off then.
Oh, come. There's half my plan done now. How puzzling all these changes are. I'm never sure what I'm going to be from one minute to another. However, I've got back to my right size. The next thing is to get into that beautiful garden. How is that to be done, I wonder? Whoever lives there, it'll never do to come upon them this size. Why, I should frighten them out of their wits.
For the duchess, an invitation from the queen to play croquet.
From the Queen? An invitation for the Duchess to play croquet. There's no sort of use in knocking, and that for two reasons. First, because I'm on the same side of the door as you are. Secondly, because they're making such a noise inside, no one could possibly hear you.
Please then, how am I to get in?
There might be some sense in your knocking if we had the door between us. For instance, if you were inside, you might knock, and I could let you out, you know.
How am I to get in?
I shall sit here till tomorrow, or next day, maybe.
How am I to get in?
Are you to get in at all? That's the first question, you know.
It's really dreadful, the way all the creatures argue. It's enough to drive one crazy.
I shall sit here on and off for days and days.
But what am I to do?
Anything you like.
Oh, there's no use in talking to him. He's perfectly idiotic. There's certainly too much pepper in that soup. Please, could you tell me why your cat grins like that?
It's a Cheshire cat, and that's why.
Pig!
I didn't know that Cheshire cats always grinned. In fact, I didn't know that cats could grin.
They all can, and most of them do.
I don't know of any that do.
You don't know much, and that's a fact.
Oh, please mind what you're doing. Oh, there goes his precious nose.
If everybody minded their own business, the world would go round a deal faster than it does.
Which would not be an advantage. Just think of what work it would make with the day and night. You see, the earth takes 24 hours to turn round on its axis.
Talking of axes, chop off her head.
24 hours, I think, or is it 12?
Oh, don't bother me. I never could abide figures. Speak roughly to your little boy and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy, because he knows it teases. Wow! 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 I speak severely to my boy. I beat him when he sneezes, for he can thoroughly enjoy the pepper when he pleases. Wow! 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 Here, you may nurse it a bit if you like. I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen.
Just like a starfish. If I don't take this child away with me, they're sure to kill it in a day or two. Wouldn't it be murder to leave it behind?
Don't grunt. That's not at all a proper way of expressing yourself. But perhaps it was only sobbing. If you're going to turn into a pig, my dear, I'll have nothing more to do with you. Mind now. Now what am I to do with this creature when I get it home? Oh! If it had grown up, it would have made a dreadfully ugly child, but it makes a rather handsome pig. Cheshire Puss, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?
That depends a good deal on where you want to get to.
I don't much care where,
Then it doesn't matter which way you go.
as long as I get somewhere.
Oh, you're sure to do that if you only work long enough.
What sort of people live about here?
In that direction lives a hatter, and in that direction lives a March hare. Visit either you like. They're both mad.
But I don't want to go among mad people.
Oh, you can't help that. We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad.
How do you know I'm mad?
You must be, or you wouldn't have come here.
And how do you know that you're mad?
To begin with, a dog's not mad. You grant that?
I suppose so.
Well, then, you see, a dog growls when it's angry and wags its tail when it's pleased. Now, I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I'm angry. Therefore, I'm mad.
I call it purring, not growling.
Call it what you like. Do you play croquet with the Queen today?
I should like it very much, but I haven't been invited yet.
You'll see me there. By the by, what became of the baby? I'd nearly forgotten to ask.
It turned into a pig.
I thought it would.
I've seen hatters before. The March hare will be much the most interesting, and perhaps, as this is May, it won't be raving mad. At least, not so bad as it was in March.
Did you say pig or fig?
I said pig, and I wish you wouldn't keep appearing and vanishing so suddenly. You make one quite giddy.
All right.
Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, but a grin without a cat? It's the most curious thing I ever saw in my life. Excuse me, sirs. May I sit down?
There's no room. No room indeed. No room.
There's plenty of room.
Have some wine.
I don't see any wine.
There isn't any.
Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it.
It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited.
I didn't know it was your table. It's laid for a great many more than 3.
Your hair wants cutting.
You should learn not to make personal remarks. It's very rude.
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
I believe I can guess that.
Do you mean that you think you know the answer to it?
Exactly so.
Then you should say what you mean.
I do. At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know.
Not the same thing a bit.
You might as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see.
You might as well say that I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like.
You might just as well say that I breathe when I sleep is the same as I sleep when I breathe.
It is the same thing with you. What day of the month is it?
The 4th.
2 days wrong. I told you butter wouldn't suit the works. It was the best butter. Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well. You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife. It was the best butter, you know.
What a funny watch. It tells the day of the month and doesn't tell what o'clock it is.
Why should it? Does your watch tell you what year it is?
Of course not. Well, that's because it stays the same year for such a long time together.
Which is just the case with mine.
I don't quite understand you.
The dormouse is asleep again.
Of course. Just what I was going to remark myself.
Have you guessed the riddle yet?
No, I give up. What's the answer?
I haven't the slightest idea. Nor I.
I think you might do something better with the time than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers.
If you knew time as well as I do, you wouldn't talk of wasting it. It's him.
I don't know what you mean.
Of course you don't. I dare say you never even spoke to time.
Perhaps not, but I know I have to beat the time when I learn music.
Ah, that accounts for it. He won't stand beating. Now, if you only kept on good terms with him, he'd do almost anything you liked with the clock. For example, suppose it were 9 o'clock in the morning. Just time to begin lessons. You'd only have to whisper a hint to time, and round goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for dinner.
I only wish it was.
That would be grand, certainly, but then I shouldn't be hungry for it, you know.
Not at first, perhaps, but you could keep it to 1:30 as long as you liked.
Is that the way you manage?
Not I. We quarrelled last March, just before he went mad, you know. It was at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts, and I had to sing, "Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at." You know the song, perhaps?
I've heard something like it.
It goes on, you know, in this way. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, 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 twinkle.
Twinkle, 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 twinkle.
Well, I'd barely finished the first verse when the Queen jumps up and bawled out, "He's murdering the time! Off with his head!"
How dreadfully savage.
And ever since that he won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now.
Is that the reason so many tea things are put out here?
Yes, that's it. It's always tea time, and we have no time to wash the things between whiles.
Then you keep moving round, I suppose.
Exactly. As the things get used up.
But what happens when you come to the beginning again?
Suppose we change the subject. I'm getting tired of this. I vote the young lady tells us a story.
I'm afraid I don't know one.
Then the Dormouse shall. Wake up, Dormouse! Wake up! Wake up!
I wasn't asleep. I heard every word you fellows were saying.
Tell us a story,
Yes, please do.
and be quick about it, or you'll be asleep again before it's done.
Once upon a time there were 3 little sisters, and their names were Elsie, Lacy, and Tilly. And they lived at the bottom of a well.
What do they live on?
They lived on treacle.
They couldn't have done that, you know. They'd have been ill.
So they were. Very ill.
But why did they live at the bottom of a well?
Take some more tea.
I've had nothing yet, so I can't take more.
You mean you can't take less? It's very easy to take more than nothing.
Nobody asked your opinion.
Who's making personal remarks now?
Why did they live at the bottom of a well?
It was a treacle well.
There's no such thing.
Shh, 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 shh.
If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself.
No, please go on. I won't interrupt again. I dare say that there may be one.
One, indeed. And so these 3 little sisters, they were learning to draw, you know.
What did they draw?
Treacle.
I want a clean cup. Let's all move one place on.
But I don't understand. Where did they draw the treacle from?
You can draw water out of a water well, so I should think you could draw treacle out of a treacle well, eh? Stupid.
But they were in the well.
Of course they were. Well in. They were learning to draw, and they drew all manner of things, everything that begins with an M.
Why with an M?
Why not?
That begins with an M, such as mouse traps, and the moon, and memory, and muchness. You know, you say things are much of a muchness. Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of a muchness?
Really, now you ask me, I don't think.
Then you shouldn't talk.
At any rate, I'll never go there again. It's the stupidest tea party I ever was at in all my life.